Twisted Christian. Today I'm discussing the massive reset looms. The central bankers are trapped. Now, but before we get into that, I'd like to thank you guys for your support on the Patreon. The links are down below in the description, and also other Twisted Christian support links too as well. When you guys support the Patreon, not only do you support me as far as this YouTube channel, but you also support in the Grigori project, which is on the Patreon. Alright people, I want to discuss something that's very serious, and especially if you live here in the United States, or I guess anywhere where you have a central bank, and that's pretty much everywhere. Now, one of the things that I've been discussing over and over and over again is all the money the Federal Reserve has been putting into the markets. And you're going to find out here that they are pumping an enormous amount of money. I'm going to read a couple articles to you. I'm not going to read each article all the way through, but I just want to read enough for you guys to get an understanding, and that this reset is going to come. And as far as if you've watched anybody else who makes videos on dinar or a global reset, they have proven over and over and over again with different articles. You look at the debt, there's so many other things that are contributing to this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read this. The Federal Reserve admits it pumped more than $6 trillion to Wall Street in the recent 6-week period. $6 trillion in 6 weeks, folks. Now, for those of you who live in the United States, you have to wonder, where do they get $6 trillion with all the different things that the United States has cut back on in the last, say, 8 years? You look at, funding for this or funding for that that's been cut, or you look at the debate over how much the wall is going to be, like 5 to 7 billion, and then you look at how they cut the food stamp program and things like that. But then you turn around and you look at the Federal Reserve, and they just pumped $6 trillion into the markets like it's nothing. And so I want you guys to be aware of that. It doesn't matter what political party you belong to. They just pumped $6 trillion. What could the United States do with $6 trillion right now? There's a lot that this country could do. But because of debt, our money, our tax money, is being wasted. And for those of you who live outside the United States, you guys need to pay attention, because the Federal Reserve is the leader, basically, of all the central banks. And so they usually follow what the Federal Reserve does. They do operate independently to a certain extent, but ultimately their allegiance is to the Federal Reserve. All right, now I'm just going to go ahead and start reading. If the Federal Reserve was looking for a media lockdown on news about the trillions of dollars in cumulative repo loans it has funneled quietly to Wall Street's trading houses since September 17th of last year, could not have found a better cloud cover than Donald Trump. First, the impeachment proceedings bumped the Fed's money spigot from newspaper headlines. Then this past Friday, the Fed released its December meeting minutes at 2 p.m. with its highly anticipated plans to announce for the future a vast money giveaway to Wall Street. That news was ignored as the media scrambled to cover Trump's termination of the General of Iran, which raised the immediate specter of retaliatory strike against the U.S. by Iran. The Fed's minutes revealed after multiple expansions of this vast money spigot, which was previously set to lapse in January after getting the Wall Street trading houses through the year-end money crunch. Instead, it may be extended through April. The minutes reads as follows. The manager also discussed expectations to gradually transition away from active repo operations next year as Treasury bill purchases supply a larger base of reserves. The calendar of repo operations starting in mid-January could reflect a gradual reduction in active repo operations. The manager indicated that some repo operations might be needed at least through April, when tax payments will sharply reduce reserve levels. Corporate and individual tax payments occur every April. The Fed offers no explanation to why this April is different and requires a multi-trillion open money spigot from the Fed. Right, the Fed's minutes also acknowledge that the most recent actions have tailed up to roughly $215 billion per day, flowing to traded houses. There were 29 business days between the last Federal Open Market Committee meeting, the last Fed minutes, meaning that approximately $6.2 trillion in cumulative loans to Wall Street trading houses has been made in that short span of time. During the 2007 to 2010 financial collapse in Wall Street, the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, the Fed funneled a total of $29 trillion in cumulative loans to Wall Street banks, their trading houses, and their foreign derivative counterparts between December 2007 and July 2010. At this pace it's currently going, it would eclipse that $29 trillion before the middle of this year, which is 2020. All right. So first of all, to address something, all this that's going on, it's being overshadowed by what's going on with the President of the United States and what's going on in the Middle East. All right. So that's why it's important that you guys hear this information and research this information, because there's going to be a period of time that eventually this debt is going to catch up with the United States, and then it's going to fall back on the rest of the world. Now, of course, in my opinion, the Federal Reserve chair needs to be replaced, but here in the United States, with the Republicans and Democrats, the Democrats don't want Jay Powell removed. So there would be a big battle politically if they were to do that. But I think that's going to happen anyway once it all comes out. Now, one of the things that this article mentions is that the House is responsible for checking the Fed's actions. And it says here, the House Financial Services Committee just released its committee hearing schedule for January, and there isn't a peep about a hearing to examine the Fed's unprecedented actions. So there we go. So they're not even our government is questioning what's going on. Right? And I did do some research on the president's tweets, and he hasn't said anything about this. And it's probably best that both sides are keeping quiet, because when this all happens, the President of the United States can blame Powell because he didn't warn us. He keeps saying that everything is going to be okay. But we know it's not going to be okay. Right? For those who've been watching, this is an enormous amount of money that the world does not have. So whenever this reset takes place, there's going to be a short period of time where things are going to be really bad, in my opinion. That's just one of the theories. All right, now I want to point out this article by Zero Hedge. All right, it's called "Massive Reset Looms. Pinto warns central bankers are trapped." Is that one of the things you guys need to realize is that what are the central bankers trapped by? What are the central bankers trapped by? They are trapped by their own debt. Their own system that they set up, or the system that they changed when they went from the gold standard to the standard that we currently have now. But I'm going to go ahead and read this article. Money manager Mike Pinto says, forget about the sky-high stock market because everything is being propped up with massive global printing. All right, so it's not just here in the United States, but it's happening all over the world. Global debt has now risen above $250 trillion. Let that sink in for a second. And it's a record percentage of 330% of GDP. So we have never seen debt like this before in nominal terms. Even as percentage of the phony GDP that is engineered by free money, it is at a record. So the central bankers have realized that they are trapped. There is no escape from the global massive debt monetization. We have China, Japan, Europe, and even our Federal Reserve is back in QE. We have a standing repo facility. We can only raise rates to 1.5%, and we are headed back to 0%. So the only way the massive pile of debt is able to be serviced, or even on the margin, is when money is free and central banks continually debase currency. Pinto goes on to say, now I hear from the central bankers that inflation is not rising fast enough. They are panicked that inflation is not rising fast enough. You have to wonder why the faith in the fiat currencies isn't eroding more rapidly. It is going to, because all the ingredients are there, and I think the pace of the erosion is going to become a deluge. The zeitgeist of the day should be the central bankers are trapped, and they can never raise interest rates. Real interest rates will be falling, and if you want a chance staying in the middle class, you have to preserve your purchasing power. That means owning gold. All right, so he goes in to talk about owning gold, and then we are going to have a massive reset, and all this debt is going to have to be defaulted upon. It is going to be defaulted upon in two ways, through inflation and through implicit restructuring. Knowing how they're going to default on this debt is going to make you solvent. All right, so there we go. Now, and for those of you who follow the channel, you guys already pretty much know that there is a reset coming. Some type of reset. Okay, and as we look at, just to show you guys, we have an economy that's getting close to 30,000, right, in the Dow. And then you have the gold prices up above 1,500. These two things do not mix. High gold prices and a booming economy, right? Because people shift away from gold into the economy. But right now, there's a lot of money being shifted into gold. Banks, I've showed you on this channel, banks have talked about economic resets. The private banking industry and the warnings that have come from there. What the Federal Reserve is doing. There are many things that if you look at the whole picture, there is going to be some type of global reset. And they've warned us. They did their warning, right? And part of the problem is there's so much going on in the media that they're not reporting that. And guess what? I guess if the media was reporting it, you'd probably start to see the stock market go down. And maybe that time will come as we get closer to the election. All right. And as I've discussed before, when we talked about the price of gold, the central bank gold buying spree is expected to continue into 2020. So here we go again, right? So they're buying gold. They're trying to diversify. They're trying to get out of being trapped. And this is actually, and I've showed you guys, this has been actually going on for a long time. But little did they know, they were setting themselves up to go to some type of gold-backed system. Right? Doesn't mean the whole thing is backed by gold, but this all remains to be seen. And just to point out, Deutsche Central Bank hits that economic restart based on gold standard. I've discussed that. So we've been warned. We've been warned of what's going on and what's happening. And it's up to you now to put yourself in the position, because I believe there's going to be a short period of time where things are going to seem really bad. And then we know that the reset is boom. So we're looking for some type of downfall, and then we're looking for some type of reset. And then putting ourselves in the position, whether it comes to stocks or it comes to the currencies, that we put ourselves in the position financially and also prophetically as we look at the things of Kim Clement, the dinar and stocks and other things. So now, right now, what are we looking for? I think one of the major pieces to the puzzle is going to determine on who the Prime Minister of Iraq is going to be. I think that's going to be a major determination, because I'm looking at that prophetically as well. But of course, as I've always said, anything could pop off at any time. 6 trillion, people. Let that sink in. 6 trillion. And the money that the United States Congress fights over is chump change compared to what the Federal Reserve has done. All right, guys, I thank you for your support. Like, share, be prepared, get yourself ready. We're in 2020. It's going to be a roller coaster year with the elections and with what's going on in the Middle East. Be prayerful. And with that being said, Twisted Christian out.